Single dad invited to XS wedding. What he discovered about her left everyone in tears. Jack stared at the invitation in his hands, its glossy surface reflecting a life he once envisioned but was now fractured. Sarah's wedding. The thought twisted like a knife in his gut. Just months after their divorce, the idea was haunting and surreal, twisting memories of laughter and plans for a future into jagged echoes of what could have been. He felt the rush of anxiety bubble within, suffocating him. How had they gotten here? Did she truly want to marry someone else? Was he simply meant to sit back and wave goodbye to the woman he had loved since high school? With every ounce of courage, he approached the day begrudgingly, forcing himself to wear a smile for Lily, who was buzzing with excitement. "Dad, this might be great. You and Mom together again, we're a family, right?" Her innocent belief in reconciliation weighed heavy on his heart. Jack shifted his gaze, grappling with feelings of hopelessness that tangled with the desperate urge to protect her from the harsh truths of life. As he arrived at the church, beautiful and filled with floral grandeur, he felt like a ghost haunting the scene of his own life. Old friends greeted him, their eyes filled with familiar concern, but each conversation felt like walking through mud. The laughter dancing around him felt foreign. Jack's heart sank as he watched Sarah glide through the sea of guests, radiant and happy, while his own spirit sank deeper into turmoil. How would he ever muster the resolve to share the truth with Lily? That his heart still clung to shadows of hope, that attending this wedding felt like giving up. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He wandered into the reception, the air heavy and loud with merriment, yet Jack felt utterly alone. A family friend, Paul, approached, eyes intense. They exchanged small talk over stale punch, until Paul dropped the weight of a revelation. Sarah had been battling depression since the divorce, pouring herself into community service as a coping mechanism. Jack's composure cracked, the resentment he harbored crumbled under the flood of new understanding. Regret washed over him, leaving behind the raw ache of recollection. Pushed by a sudden surge of emotion, he stepped outside to find Sarah on the terrace. She stood there, so much like the girl he once knew, yet so different. The air filled with years of silent resentments began to thicken as they started to talk. Each word felt like a fragile thread threatening to snap under the weight of unexpressed emotions. Jack's heart throbbed, battling the rising desire to unearth the hope he buried so deep. As the evening faded, inspiration hit him like a bolt. He pulled a napkin from his pocket, a pen trembling in his grip. Words poured from his heart, allowing him to embrace the passion he had stifled since their early days. Could this be a new beginning? As he prepared to share this discovery with her, fear washed over him again. What if, after all this time, the connection they were rekindling would fizzle into nothing? Would he be brave enough to risk it all, knowing his heart was still so fragile? The question loomed, leaving Jack teetering on the brink, a precipice filled with both hope and dread forging the path to who they could become. Jack stood on the terrace, the wedding festivities buzzing in the background, drowning out every rational thought. The napkin in his hand crinkled under the pressure of his grip, each word he had penned trembling in resonance with his anxiety. Could he voice the hope he had felt all night? What if it shattered the tentative connection he had just begun to rebuild? Jack? Sarah's voice, soft yet assertive, cut through his turmoil. She stepped closer, her gaze a mix of curiosity and concern. It was the same look she had given him during long, difficult conversations about their marriage, moments where vulnerability often melted into raw honesty. He hesitated, the weight of years spent avoiding uncomfortable conversations pressing down on him. Sarah, his voice wavered, and she tilted her head slightly, urging him on. What is it? You look like you want to say something important. In that moment, the fragments of courage he had mustered began to solidify. I've read your stories online. The work you've been doing, it's incredible. Her eyes sparkled with surprise, then softened as he continued. I didn't realize how deeply you were affected by everything that happened. I was so overwhelmed with my own pain that I missed how much you were struggling. Sarah inhaled sharply, the breath escaping as if she was shedding a weight she had carried alone. I didn't want you to see. I thought I needed to be strong, especially for Lily. Being strong doesn't mean hiding, he replied, realization dawning. He was discovering pieces of himself, too. Encouraging her to open up felt like a first step toward dismantling the walls they had built between them. I didn't know how to support you, and I'm sorry for that. But I want to understand. A flicker of hope ignited in him, breathing life into the idea that the years apart could lead to reconciliation. The conversation shifted, they were both navigating uncharted waters, revealing fears, dreams, and regrets. As they spoke, Jack felt an underlying current of unexpressed passion and undeniable connection that would not let go. He began to draft an idea in his mind, a way to channel this renewed understanding into something more profound. What if we worked together? The question leaped from his lips before he could stop it, the impulse urging him forward. Together? Sarah echoed, lines of confusion mingling with interest. The warmth in her gaze hinted at curiosity, but Jack felt the chill of uncertainty shadowing it. What do you mean? About community service. You have so much talent and insight, maybe we could start a project together? Something to reach out and help others, while helping ourselves along the way? The idea resonated, but he could see the gears in her mind turning, uncertainty still present. Jack could sense the moment hanging precariously between them like a weathered seesaw, threatening to tip in either direction. Jack, she began slowly, what if it complicates things? What happens if we can't make it work? He felt the dread bubble within again, yet his determination pushed forward. Then we figure it out. Together. We owe it to ourselves and to Lily. If I can risk my heart again, then maybe you can too. He watched her expression shift, her face softening with a mix of vulnerability and hope, reminiscent of the woman he admired so deeply. What lay ahead was still uncertain, but Jack felt a resolute commitment glimmer in his chest. It was time to confront what had haunted him, not for closure, but for transformation. As they stood on the threshold of an unfamiliar chapter together, another question flickered in the corners of Jack's mind. Would they be able to move forward, or was it merely a fleeting moment before reality claimed them again? The future stretched out before them, fragile and daunting, ready to be discovered one conversation at a time. Jack paced slowly within the familiar backdrop of the terrace, the warmth of the evening air starkly contrasting the chill of uncertainty creeping back into his heart. The fluttering pages inside his mind, once filled with excitement and possibility, began to feel heavier, laden with doubt. Working together? It was an enticing thought, yet the shadows of their past lingered ominously. He glanced at Sarah, her brow furrowed in thought. In her silence, Jack could sense the emotional weight pressing upon their connection. How could they build something meaningful amid the ruins of their history? The thought spiraled within him. What if they tried to claw their way back to each other, only to find themselves entangled in the same patterns of misunderstanding? Jack, her voice broke through. I didn't expect this conversation. I mean, I appreciate your recognition of my work and your desire to collaborate, but I'm scared. Scared of what? He asked, his eyes locking onto hers, searching for truth amid her vulnerability. Scared we might fail? Or scared it'll bring up all the past hurt? Both, she admitted, a quaver in her voice slicing through her steady facade. What if we both dive into this, only to discover we can't carry the weight together? The words echoed, reminiscent of the conversations that had stifled their earlier attempts at reconnection. Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself against the doubt, realizing Sarah was not the only one pulling at the threads of discomfort. The prospect frightened him too. Sarah, maybe that's the point. We won't know unless we try. And maybe, just maybe, it'll be the one thing that helps us clear the rubble of our past. Her gaze softened as Jack spoke, but he felt a rising tide of unease. What if their trial became a disaster masked in hopeful intent? He could not deny the flicker of determination igniting inside him, pushing him forward as he acknowledged the overlapping emotions surfacing. Let us start small. A few hours a week, perhaps? We focus on something we're both passionate about. I know we both care about helping others. His heart raced as he laid bare his fractured thoughts. Perhaps this endeavor could provide them with the safe space to explore emotions better left buried while simultaneously reigniting the spark that had long since dimmed. "Maybe you're right," she finally said, her voice almost a whisper. "But there's a chance we could fall apart again." "So what? Falling apart taught us valuable lessons. Isn't that what life is?" "We embrace the chaos and the beauty," Jack replied, his fervor rising. "If we stay stagnant, it'll never change. For Lilia's sake and our own sanity, we need to try something different." He watched her expression shift from worry to contemplation. Hypotheses bubbled within him, the prospect of what could come next energizing his tired mind. What was it that they would build together? A bridge or a barricade? He yearned for the former, and he could almost taste the potential on his tongue. When she nodded slowly, the weight of something profound settled over them. He couldn't tell if it was hope or dread, but it flared his senses, awakening something dormant deep within. "Let us set a meeting," Jack proposed, something nearing excitement creeping into his voice. "Just to talk about ideas. No pressure." As they turned to leave the terrace, stepping back into the flurry of wedding festivities, Jack could feel threads weaving through the fabric of his life, the threads plagued with uncertainty but threaded with a newfound resolve to confront the coming trials and test his strength. He didn't know yet how this journey might unfold, but a dizzying sense of possibility glimmered ahead. In the midst of applying all they had learned or perhaps unlearned together, the question loomed: would they emerge stronger, or would their past intertwine with their present, once again rendering them adrift? The desire for clarity bubbled beneath the surface, ready to burst forth into the light. Jack found himself staring at the blank page of his notebook. The words resisted him like a stubborn child in a grocery store. Hours had passed since he and Sarah had agreed to meet, but his mind refused to settle on any concrete ideas for their project. The unfamiliar blend of excitement and anxiety coursed through him. What could they truly achieve if distractions of their past threatened to shadow their efforts? Was he better off channeling his energies into something different entirely? He rubbed his thumb against the pen, contemplating its power. This simple tool was meant to unleash creativity, yet it now felt burdensome. He wanted to break free from hesitations lodged deep within. A reminiscence of failed partnerships and hurtful memories triggered a cascade of doubt. But here he was, standing on the brink of opportunity. The next morning in the sunlit cafe, Jack spotted Sarah entering, her earlier hesitations replaced by a tentative smile. "Guess we meet again," she said, sliding into the booth opposite him. "Yeah. We've got work to do," he replied, forcing enthusiasm into his voice despite the growing tension in his chest. She opened her laptop, her fingers dancing nervously over the keyboard. "So, any ideas?" "I've been thinking about all those community programs we used to admire." "Sure, I remember a few we loved," he acknowledged, recalling their vibrant discussions from the past. But as their conversation grew, Jack noticed a creeping sense of inadequacy taking hold. What did he have to offer now, so many years since they really collaborated on something? Could he keep pace with Sarah, whose career had blossomed while he remained in a state of stagnation, mired in the mess of fatherhood and emotional scars? "No ideas are too small, Jack, just share what comes to mind," she urged softly, her gaze inviting him to open up. As he began to articulate potential projects, he felt a sliver of confidence surge. Activities designed for mentorship, workshops directed towards single parents like himself. He sketched out possibilities, testing their reactions on each suggestion. With every detail that flowed from his initial trepidation, he wove strength into his voice, but beneath the surface, self-doubt reared its head like a viper poised to strike. "Do you think I'm qualified enough for this?" he blurted. "I mean, what do I know about running programs? Kids are my world, sure, but what if I fail?" Her eyes narrowed slightly, assessing him. "Jack, the fact that you care means more than credentials. It gives you an insight that a spreadsheet can't provide," she affirmed. "You understand what parents like us need. We cannot resonate unless we've lived it." That statement lingered in the air. A flicker of recognition sparked within him. Perhaps his messy experiences were precisely what he needed to contribute. He had spent countless nights questioning himself, doubting his choices, but he had also grown resilient because of those struggles. "Let us craft a few ideas," Jack proposed, his voice steadier now. "Practical sessions, skills for parents, emotional health workshops. We can add things like support groups for co-parents. An undercurrent of excitement ran through him. The more he spoke, the less he could ignore the glimmer of opportunity shining through the cracks of his doubts. As they batted ideas back and forth, Jack felt the walls around him begin to crumble slowly. He was testing new ground, embracing the uncomfortable and uncharted territory of both their past and present relationships. Sarah shifted closer, their collaborative energy forming a bridge, not a barricade. Yet, just as momentum gathered, a heavier silence fell over them. Jack tried to mask his unease as thoughts marched resolutely back to their impending project. The walls still bore scars from their past, and if they weren't careful, all of this could unravel. Are we truly prepared to do this? Jack asked, his cautious optimism spiraling into a nagging question. I mean, with Lily watching? Her gaze met his, pooling with clarity and resolve. Yes. We owe it to her to show how collaboration and respect can build something beautiful. As he mulled over her words, a different kind of tension rippled through him, one tainted with the acceptance of growth, the burgeoning hope against doubt. Could they genuinely uplift each other through this endeavor, or was this just another phase that they would inevitably outgrow? He could sense the delicate balance hanging on the precipice, for their past and future both intertwined within this precious project. But the question still loomed: would they conquer their ghosts together, or would they become just another casualty of their shared history? The answer awaited in the next meeting, where each decision could spell either unity or division. Jack paced the corner of the cafe, his earlier excitement now tempered with uncertainty. The clatter of espresso machines and distant conversations faded into white noise as he ruminated on Sarah's words. Had they truly made progress, or was it simply wishful thinking? The momentary thrill of brainstorming had been replaced by an unsettling inner dialogue, a clash of ambition and the specter of past failures resurfacing. He glanced at Sarah, watching her fingers glide over the keyboard with a determination he could only admire. The sharp contrast between their current trajectories grated at him. Did she sense his internal struggle? Did she worry that he could not meet her drive with equal fervor? Suddenly, it hit him, the weight of responsibility, not just for their project but for Lilia's future. Jack had made a habit of crafting a legacy filled with sincerity and hard work, but every step came laced with doubts. What if this collaboration turned sour, igniting old resentments? What if Lily, in her innocence, held their growing schism against him? Jack? Sarah's voice pierced his distraction, and he focused, attempting to shake off thoughts that threatened to consume him. We need to nail down our project goals, she said, a hint of urgency lacing her tone. If we want to start planning workshops, we need a clear direction. Right, he muttered, grabbing his pen as if it were the lifeline he needed. Let us establish some tangible milestones. Maybe begin with what the first sessions would offer. Pushing through the haze of his insecurities, Jack finally found structure in the chaos of thoughts. He proposed a parenting workshop series, first sessions focusing on emotional first aid for parents dealing with separation, a topic he knew intimately. His voice gained strength as he articulated potential subjects, blending vulnerability with purpose. With every sentence, he sought validation, looking for Sarah's reaction. Perfect, she nodded, her eyes lighting up. Your experience can guide us. You can lead the conversation there. A part of him cringed at the idea of being thrust into the spotlight, yet, there was an undeniable thrill in the challenge. He had shied away from showcasing his abilities, afraid of relinquishing control, but what if this endeavor signified change? I think we can focus on real-life applications, he continued, redefining his sense of purpose. Maybe role-playing scenarios or group discussions about conflict resolution between co-parents? Sarah beamed, and for a brief moment, the camaraderie of their youth resurrected between them. They were creators again, visionaries casting dreams into reality. Despite the energy simmering around them, unease skittered beneath the surface. Do you really think our past 1T influenced this? Jack ventured, cautious. What if the dynamics shift? We can easily revert to our old selves, that Jack, Sarah interjected, a stern but gentle firmness in her voice. If we acknowledge the past while focusing on the present, we can create a path forward. This is about growth, remember? For us and for the kids. Her words dripped with sincerity, fueling his resolve. Could he genuinely evolve, leaving behind the insecurities lodged deep in his psyche? The seeds of self-doubt had taken root for far too long, and maybe, just maybe, this could be the moment he chose to shake off his past, yet, beneath the gains, fragments of trepidation clung to him. What if this transformation was merely an ideal, a fleeting escape that led him further astray? What if, after all the effort, it unraveled before their eyes? As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue over their workspace, Jack's grip on the pen tightened, a tangible reminder of his resolve. He could feel the passion pulsing within him, battling against the ghosts of his failures, but before he could delve further into his thoughts, the door of the cafe swung open, drawing his awareness away from their conceptual chrysalis. A figure stepped inside, the unmistakable expression of his past fading into view. There, in the threshold of his new endeavor, stood Lisa. The calmness she exuded was paralleled only by the storm brewing within him. Jack's heart stumbled, wrestling with the weight of unresolved emotions. Did she come to interject chaos into his fragile rebirth, or had fate orchestrated this encounter to force him to confront his journey head-on? Why now? He whispered internally, teetering on the edge of confrontation. The moment hung heavy in the air, pregnant with possibilities. The harmony of his and Sarah's aspirations twisted into questions, a burgeoning dilemma brewing beneath his calm facade. Would he navigate this intersection of the past and present, or would everything he worked toward collapse under the weight of inexplicable nostalgia? And as Lisa approached, Jack realized time was no longer a linear path but a precarious entanglement of choices yet to be made. Each decision ahead beckoned him to consider who he truly wanted to become. Jack's breath hitched as Lisa's presence saturated the air around him. The chatter of patrons faded, replaced by a cacophony of memories that rushed forth, threatening to pull him under. Everything he had been working towards seemed to blur at the edges, and he instinctively tightened his grip on the pen, grounding himself in the tangible. "Lisa," he greeted, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He was surprised at how calm he sounded, but he felt the weight of their shared history pressing down, threatening to warp his resolve. She smiled, but it felt more like a reminder of their unfinished story rather than a true gesture of warmth. "Jack, fancy meeting you here," she replied, an edge of nostalgia lacing her tone as she approached the table, her gaze momentarily flickering to Sarah. There was a flicker of recognition. She had always known that Jack had ambitions, but the reality of them now seemed to take on an uncomfortable tangibility. "Yeah, just working on something," he offered, nodding toward Sarah, who watched him with concern painted across her face. She caught his eye and gave him a subtle nod, a simple gesture that said, "You've got this." That small affirmation stoked a fire deep within him, an ember of determination that he refused to let extinguish. "Looks like you've moved on," Lisa said, her voice tinged with something he couldn't quite identify. Was it jealousy, curiosity, or perhaps a simple acknowledgement of change? "I heard about your new project." Jack felt his stomach churn. This was a convergence of worlds he never wanted. "Yeah, it's been interesting." He shifted slightly, trying to earn back some control over the conversation. "What brings you here?" "Oh, just visiting," she added, her voice softening. "Actually, I'm getting married." The word struck him like a physical blow, lingering in the air between them, heavy with finality. His heart raced in protest, memories of their own promises swirling chaotically. He could feel Sarah's eyes darting between them, tension crackling in the air. "Congratulations, Lisa," he managed to say, forced cheerfulness all at once painful and liberating. "That's great." "Thank you," she replied, and for a moment, a weakness flashed in her eyes. Jack wondered if she felt the same way, that their stories were somehow intertwined, each carrying pieces of the other. But then Lisa continued, "I'd love for you to come to the wedding. It's going to be a small ceremony." His mind raced, trying to decipher her intent. Was this a peace offering? An olive branch? A painful reminder etched into the present? "I'm not sure that's a good idea," he replied, tentatively. Lisa's gaze hardened slightly. "It's just a part of closure, Jack. It could be good for both of us." The weight of that statement hung heavily in the air. Closure was a myth for them, it never felt complete. His instinct was to refuse, to recoil from the responsibility of confronting their shared scars. Yet at that moment, Jack felt a stirring of potential within him. Maybe he found himself saying, the option slipping through his lips before he fully processed it. Maybe if I can bring Lily, she might appreciate understanding her history.
Absolutely, Lisa replied with uncharacteristic enthusiasm, an undertone of unexpected buoyancy in her response. Jack couldn't decipher if it was genuine excitement or an effort to placate him, but it spurred something awake inside him, something he didn't know was dormant, a chance for growth. As he watched Sarah's brow knit in concern, he felt a swell of determination.
Getting caught in nostalgia would only pull him away from the present he was trying to build for himself and Lily. He quickly challenged himself internally. This could be an opportunity, or another trap laid by his past. Once again, the lines blurred between who he had been and who he wanted to be. Rising to this challenge meant more than wrestling with Lisa's past. It held the key to redefining his narrative and stepping into the role of the evolved, intentional father. Jack swallowed hard, feeling a surge of clarity rip through the fog. He turned to Sarah, seeking her support. I think it's time we crafted new stories for ourselves, ones that include our past but don't hinge upon it. Her eyes sparkled with understanding as she nodded, a silent agreement coursing through the fabric of their reconnecting partnership. At that moment, Jack's foundation felt surer beneath him. Perhaps it was not just about him and Sarah, it was about Lily, too. She deserved a father who learned to face the intricacies of their lives, rather than escaping from them. But as Lisa smiled once more, something tightened in Jack's chest. As they exchanged pleasantries and navigated the space between then and now, he recognized the question still loomed in the shadows of his thoughts. Was he truly ready to face every facet of his journey, including the most challenging ones? The taste of potential transformation felt fresh, yet tinged with uncertainty. This was more than just intersecting paths, it was about his personal evolution, preparing him for choices that could redefine his very existence. The pain of revelation dawned on him as he began to consider how every decision would carry weight, building the life he so desperately wanted for Lily, and with that realization, he approached a precipice in his transformation, one that could alter everything. Facing Lisa might just be a window into a future he was ready to embrace, but what could he uncover about himself in the process? Jack stepped back into the world bustling around him, but the vibrant cafe felt muted, tinged with the shadows of the conversation he just had. Each step away from Lisa seemed to cling to him, wrapping his thoughts in a tense cocoon. He fought for clarity as he wrestled with what it all meant. Are you okay?
Sarah's voice cut through his turbulent thoughts, her concern visible as they slipped into a quieter corner of the cafe. The air between them felt charged, an unspoken understanding passing like a spark. I think so, Jack stammered, uncertain of how to articulate the conflict churning inside him.
She's getting married. Just like that.
That's a lot to take in, she replied, her tone soft yet firm.
But what does it mean for you? For Lily?
His heart raced, not just at the sudden weight of her inquiry but at the realization he could no longer ignore.
I don't know if I'm ready to confront all of this. Sarah's gaze pierced through him, challenge and support blended into one. Jack, confronting it is the only way forward. You want to build a life for Lily, right?
Then you need to deal with your past.
For you and for her.
The truth settled in his mind, a knot of fear and responsibility intertwined. He had spent too long building walls to keep his past at bay, but now those walls threatened to cost him his future. Maybe I should go, he whispered, leaning back slightly.
To the wedding.
Not just for closure, but for understanding, to find out where I fit in all this.
Then go, Sarah encouraged, her affirmation tightening his resolve.
Just like you said, craft a new story.
You can't move forward if you don't face what's behind you.
The idea blossomed.
What was it he truly wanted? Not just to confront Lisa but to anchor his identity somewhat tightly to Lily's future.
I want to show Lily that there is strength in facing our past, no fear, just growth, he declared with more conviction. Sarah smiled, her support was more than comfort, it was a partnership.
And in that strength, you'll teach her resilience, too.
As Jack's mind spun with possibilities, he caught sight of a little girl with pigtails laughing as she spun around her father in the cafe, the warmth of their bond a stark reminder of what he sought to cultivate in his life. Yet the laughter grew distant as a sobering thought intruded. Was his past, embodied by Lisa, truly ready to let him forge new paths? He would need to confront not only her but also the emotions he had long buried.
The prospect filled him with unease, but beneath that unease, a flicker of courageous anticipation ignited.
Going to the wedding wouldn't unravel everything, he reassured himself, pushing through the anxiety constricting around his heart. But it could open doors or perhaps me to a different version of myself, one not solely defined by the past. In that moment, he committed to the journey that lay ahead. This would not only be a confrontation with Lisa but a defining moment of change for himself and Lily. As they wrapped up their conversation, hope and fear mingled like the aromas of the cafe, creating a complex tapestry of emotions. But deep down, he felt a burgeoning potential. The strength to reshape his narrative was beginning to unfurl. Jack's mind shifted rapidly as he contemplated what this experience might reveal about him, and how it could illuminate his path as a father. With every concluding thought, he came closer to acknowledging that transformation was necessary, a brave leap that could alter the course of his relationships. Yet one question lingered, unresolved and potent. What truths would emerge when he stood face to face with Lisa? His past, his regrets, perhaps even his unfulfilled dreams. As the cafe bustled with energy, Jack felt like a new chapter was about to be written, one word at a time, sitting on the cusp of a transformative decision. This journey beckoned him forward, but would he be strong enough to endure what lay in wait? Jack took a deep breath as he stepped out of the cafe, the chilly air wrapping around him like a brisk reminder of the reality he was about to face. The streets buzzed with life, yet he felt more isolated than ever. Each footfall echoed with the weight of his thoughts. He was about to confront a chapter of his life that he had hoped would remain closed. In the days leading to the wedding, he felt unmoored, like a ship adrift without a crew. Each encounter with Sarah, who provided a grounding presence, coiled the tension within him, igniting both fear and resolve. He began to prepare himself, not just for the encounter with Lisa but to reclaim his narrative, one sentence at a time. Jack found himself looking back on memories he had buried, moments shared with Lisa that still held a bittersweet allure. Their laughter, their dreams, and eventually, the heartbreak that fractured their lives. Those memories washed over him in waves. He questioned whether he was equipped to face that part of his past. Was he strong enough to stand in the face of what they had lost and what could never be reclaimed? Late into his nights, he rehearsed conversations that never seemed to play out as he imagined. Would they draw out mutual respect or ignite unresolved feelings? His imagination ran wild, spurred by doubts and regrets. The question that haunted him was not just how he would face her, but who he would be in that moment. The evening before the wedding, as Jack tucked Lily into bed, he could see the innocence in her eyes as she drifted off, blissfully unaware of the turbulence he was grappling with. He felt a surge of determination, a resolve crystallizing in the depths of his anxiety. He would attend the wedding not just as an observer of Lisa moving on but to affirm his own path and present a steady figure for Lily. With every lingering thought about the impending event, Jack recognized the limitations he had imposed on himself. He had been on autopilot, prioritizing work and routines, believing that he was shielding Lily from disappointment. But in doing so, he had failed to show her how to embrace life's complexities. If he was to be the father he aspired to be, he needed to model strength, resilience, and the courage to confront past shadows. The morning of the wedding dawned crisp and clear, yet Jack felt an internal storm churn as he put on his suit. The mirror reflected a man who was attempting to project confidence but who felt like a kaleidoscope of feelings, excitement intertwined with dread. With each adjustment of his tie, he sighed deeply. He was not just dressing for an event, he was preparing to rewrite his story. Arriving at the venue, the atmosphere thrummed with an undercurrent of joy. The decorations sparkled, and laughter echoed, yet amidst the celebration, Jack felt acutely aware of his own nervous vulnerability. As he stepped into the crowd, faces blurred into one another, and he instinctively sought the familiar silhouette of Lisa. He was surprised to find that she looked radiant, happiness emanating from her like sunlight piercing through the trees. They had once shared dreams intertwined with their hopes for a family, and now they stood on opposite shores, each holding different dreams. For a moment, buried emotions surged, threatening to drown him. Would he fumble? Would he retreat into a shadow? He resisted the urge to flee and steadied himself, remembering why he came. It was time to face the music, and not just the celebratory melodies of the wedding. This was a moment to reclaim his narrative, a chance to redefine who he was and who he could still be. He could not allow the past to dictate his future. His growth depended on his ability to embrace it. As he stepped closer to where Lisa stood, a mixture of hope and uncertainty coiled in his stomach. Would the conversation confirm his fears, or would it lead to a bridge of understanding? Just as he was about to say her name, a voice broke through the crowd, calling for the couple's attention. The wedding was about to begin, and the moment to confront his past and ultimately discover who he had become had finally arrived.
Jack inhaled deeply, preparing to dive into the unknown, but one thought anchored him: would he emerge transformed or forever tethered to what once was?
Jack's heart pounded as the gathering swelled with excitement. The celebratory mood enveloped him, almost suffocating beneath the weight of his unease. Guests turned their attention to the front, where the officiant stood ready, but Jack was frozen at the periphery, grappling with the decision that lay before him. He watched Lisa, her laughter mingling with the joyous applause echoing through the garden. For a moment, he envied her ease, how she glided through the crowd with grace, the vivid colors of her dress symbolizing a fresh beginning. He could feel his pulse quicken, a visceral reaction to confronting not just her but the version of himself that remained intertwined with their past. As the ceremony began, Jack's mind roamed. Each vow spoke to what they once envisioned together, recollections of shared moments and whispered promises flashing through his mind. The dreams they had painted in vibrant hues now felt like distant memories. In that moment, realization struck him: the pain of their breakup had been a canvas, a monochrome swath across a once colorful life. If he were to chart his future, he needed to actively splash color back onto that canvas. He closed his eyes, visualizing a version of himself that was whole and unburdened. No longer would he be the man defined by loss, he sought to emerge shaped instead by his experiences. As the officiant's voice carried through the air, Jack began to craft an internal dialogue, words of validation, acceptance, and closure. It was time to move past the sorrow and into a liberated version of himself, and then, just as the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Jack felt a compelling urge to take a small but significant step toward clarity. He willed himself to approach Lisa, not to revisit the wounds of their past, but to acknowledge growth. He could feel the weight of their shared history even in that fleeting connection of their eyes.
"Can we talk?"
he asked, a tremor of vulnerability laced in his tone. She looked taken aback but nodded, gesturing for him to follow her to a quieter corner of the venue.
"Jack, are you okay?"
I didn't expect her words faded into a gentle concern.
"I'm trying to be," he replied, taking a steadying breath. "I wanted to say that I wish you happiness. I truly mean it."
A surprised smile broke upon her face, a flicker of the old warmth between them igniting ever so briefly.
But Jack didn't wish to linger on what they lost.
"I realize I've been stuck for so long, caught in a loop of our past.
Today is about you, but it has also nudged me forward."
As he spoke, he noticed the traces of empathy reflected in her eyes. She shifted slightly, her expression softening.
"Jack, you're more than what happened between us.
You're a fantastic dad, and I see that in how you care for Lily," she said, her sincerity palpable. Those words, cemented in a shared understanding, became a lifeline, pulling Jack further from the depths of regret.
"Thank you.
I've been behind this wall, thinking I was protecting her and myself." "Sometimes you need to be a little reckless to embrace the unknown," Lisa replied thoughtfully.
"You have to explore the complexities of life, Jack." Glimmers of unresolved emotions flickered as she spoke.
Jack realized it wasn't just about them, it was about forging a path for himself, as a father, as a man. "I want to create a new narrative," he declared, emboldened by the honesty of their exchange.
"And I need to be an example, not just a shadow of my past."
The moments settled between them, pregnant with the possibility of what lay ahead.
Yet, alongside their shared understanding lay an undeniable tension. He was confronted with the reality that while he could strive for his own narrative, Lisa would inevitably craft her own story. Just as Jack felt a surge of relief coursing through him, he overheard laughter and celebration resume around them. The wedding guests, buoyed by the joy of new beginnings, brushed past, oblivious to the pivotal chapter unfolding in the corner. With newfound clarity illuminating the path ahead, Jack took a faltering step back. Would this encounter redefine his future, or would it delay his growth, as remnants of the past tugged at his resolve? He looked into Lisa's eyes, uncertainty swirling, and made a choice.
Stepping away, he faced the crowd, each laughter reinvigorating a sense of purpose within him. Yet deep down, a question gnawed at him: could he truly let go of the past while still honoring the lessons it imparted? As the wedding continued, Jack took a moment to breathe, readying himself to embrace the uncertainties ahead, unaware that the next revelation spiraling into his life was only just beginning. Jack stood before the mirror in his small apartment, a man on the verge of transformation. It had been weeks since the wedding, a whirlwind of emotions that shook him to his core. The encounter with Lisa had stripped away the last vestiges of the weight he'd carried for so long. While part of him had dreaded facing her, he now felt a renewed strength unfolding within him. He was ready to forge a path not defined by the past, but one illuminated by growth and purpose. He reclined against the kitchen counter, sipping coffee while reflecting on the clarity that had blossomed after confronting his history. The memory of standing at that wedding reminded him how crucial it was to release the anchors of doubt and sorrow. It was on that day he understood that their shared past, while meddled with pain, had taught him resilience, one he was ready to pass on to Lily. No longer shackled by indecision, he drafted a detailed plan for the community workshop series he had envisioned with Sarah. He had spent the past few weeks engaging with single parents, and their feedback fueled him. He realized that his journey through divorce was not just a solitary one, it resonated with so many others. He held the unique perspective that could guide them through the devastation of separation, illuminating a pathway toward healing. Confidence surged through him as the ideas flowed. He planned not just workshops but seminars, geared toward fostering not only emotional resilience but practical skills for co-parenting. He crafted the pamphlets over the next few days, shaping a vision for a program that would empower others to turn their struggles into a source of strength. There was something undeniably fulfilling about seeing his thoughts take flight as tangible concepts. As time passed, the series gained attention, and Jack found himself leading discussions, sharing anecdotes from his own experiences. With Lily S. Prouder beaming on the sidelines, he reveled in the feedback, witnessing tangible shifts in those attending. They were finding belonging and resilience together, breaking through the barriers that isolation had erected. Each successful session not only affirmed his capacity to lead but showcased how far he had come since that harrowing wedding day. His relationship with Sarah flourished alongside the project. Conversations once riddled with trepidation now brimmed with excitement and mutual respect. As they brainstormed ideas together, Jack saw her belief in him strengthen. They were two allies coming together with a shared mission to change lives. Their collaborative energy sparked possibilities they never dared to dream separately. One evening after a particularly vibrant workshop, Sarah nudged Jack with a playful smile. "You've really outdone yourself. Have you thought about launching this into a larger platform?" "I never imagined it would grow like this," he confessed, excitement tinged with disbelief. "But I want it to be meaningful." A glimmer of recognition passed between them, a mutual understanding of how far they had both come, and what they could achieve together. It extended far beyond the workshops, it was a connection deepened by shared hopes. Jack realized that this project had transformed him into someone more than just their marriage's aftermath, and as he stood before that mirror again, adjusting his tie with a profound sense of purpose, he understood fully he had not only transformed his role as a father but also stepped into a leadership position within the community. His heart was not heavy with unresolved fears, it sang with pride for the man he had become and the role he was reclaiming as a dedicated father, supportive mentor, and an architect of change. It was time to embrace the future, and Jack knew now that it was marked by strength, clarity, and an unwavering commitment to being present not just for Lily but for himself. Transformation was not merely theoretical, it was a lived reality that he had the power to shape. The journey toward healing was ongoing and evolving, but he would face it head-on, guided by the lessons learned from love, loss, and the resilience built in their wake. The call to action waited quietly in his mind, urging him to take the next step, one grounded not in fear, but embraced as an opportunity for hope. He resolved to inspire those around him to also reach toward their potential, reminding them that transformation resided at the intersection of courage and vulnerability. Readying himself for the day ahead, he realized this was only the beginning. Jack stepped forward, ready to share not just his story, but to invite others into their own journey of growth. And with that resolve solidified within him, it was clear, he was ready to conquer whatever came next. Proud of the road already traveled and the future he was now determined to shape. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your friends deserve this inspiration.